So the second speaker that we've got today is Louise. So Louise is on a mission to help society become more grief literate. She's a bereaved mother herself, a therapist and a podcaster. She's written 2 books about grief and just the podcast on the subject. So I'm just going to hand over to you. You can talk far better about yourself than I.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for organising such an amazing festival. It's incredible.
Just some people now, don't we? We're on 80 last year.
Thank you. So I have got some slides which will hopefully complement what I'm going to share today, but because technology hates me, Bill is going to be pressing the button. Hopefully it will work. And everything going okay?
Not saying.
Excuse me for reading my notes. So I'm not here to trigger anyone today or upset you. I'm here to talk about the elephant in the room. Because when my son Matthew died in 2016, a lot of people didn't know what to say, and a lot of people didn't know what to do, and some people just found it much easier to avoid me. And this is a very common experience for people going through grief, and I understand why. Because people are concerned that they may say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So they find it easier to say or do nothing. So their intentions are good. But grief is a universal experience and we all do it differently. Unfortunately, society tends to shy away from the conversation. But I am on a mission to help society become more grief literate. We need to talk about grief, and people need to hear these conversations. We need to stop the awkwardness and clumsiness that surrounds grief. This is my son Matthew, and I've done a lot of work with grief since Matthew died, and this has given me the confidence to work with others who are also grieving. I've found purpose through my grief. It's not what I would have chosen, but it has become my passion. Now, I'm a therapist in my day job, and I appreciate that grief cannot be fixed. It can only be experienced, processed, loved, and cared for. There's no rules, there's no time scale, and even though our experiences are all different, what we do share are the same feelings and emotions. And as a therapist, I spend time outside each session, researching and making notes and treatment plans. And I hold my clients and my thoughts between sessions. You know, it may be difficult to talk to friends and family, but a therapist creates a safe space for you to talk or just be. And therapists do care deeply. So grief is a complex experience that covers a wide range of feelings, including sadness, anger, confusion, guilt, denial, and sometimes even relief. So it's not just one emotion. It's a combination of different emotions swirling together in an overwhelming mix. When we lose someone or something important to us, we may feel deep sorrow and longing. At the same time, we may also experience anger towards ourselves or others for the situation that led to the loss. Confusion and disbelief often accompany grief as we try to make sense of changes happening around us. And sometimes there may even be moments of relief mixed in with the sadness, especially if the loss brings an end to suffering or pain. Grieving is a process that allows us to navigate through these many different emotions while coming to terms with our loss and moving forward in our own way and in our own time. And people can experience one or more of these different types of grief. I certainly experienced anticipatory grief over losing my son Matthew. At the age of 25, he was diagnosed with a very rare and very aggressive form of kidney cancer, and he was given a very poor prognosis. We were told that chemotherapy didn't work on this type of cancer and it would just be a matter of time. As a family, we didn't accept that, and we tried every alternative anti-cancer protocol out there, including all the diets and including illegal cannabis oil. But nothing worked, and he died 2 years after his diagnosis. As the cancer progressed through his body, I grieved at every stage. And even when I knew his death was imminent, anticipatory grief did not prepare me for when he took his last breath. Grief is brutal. When my dad died over 10 years ago, I didn't cry and I didn't feel sad. In fact, I felt huge relief. And I thought I was a terrible person. I loved my dad, but I didn't realise at the time that I had done my grieving while he was still alive. He had a horrible lung condition called COPD, which put him in hospital every few months, and he also had dementia. I lost my dad slowly over a number of years due to his illness and dementia. So when he died, it was normal to feel relieved. Nobody told me that anticipatory grief was even a thing, and I thought something was wrong with me. I also lost my lovely mum to dementia. She died 2 years ago, and I knew and understood then that I was experiencing anticipatory grief, and I appreciated everything that I was feeling. Everything I was feeling was normal. Now, a common phrase people tend to say is that time is a healer, but that's not true. We are the healers. How we process our experience of grief and loss determines how we move forward. If we wait for time to heal us, we'll become stuck in our grief. Time is just a vehicle that takes us along that journey. And no one has the magic formula for when it comes to passing on condolences, because people say the clumsiest things. I remember getting very upset when someone said to me, "At least you have another child." Other common phrases that have been less comforting include, "Matthew is in a better place now," and "everything happens for a reason." While these sentiments may be well-intentioned, they can often miss the mark in providing comfort to those who are grieving. But the worst thing people can do is ignore our grief. People need to say something, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable, and even if it lands wrong. The grief needs validating. It could even be a gentle touch or cliche phrase such as, "I don't know what to say, but I'm thinking of you." And don't cross the road to avoid someone, because you will be seen and it hurts. A friend of mine saw me walking down the parade in Leamington and then crossed the road to avoid me. And I get that. I probably was that person before I'd gone through this. It happened in a supermarket too with someone else. This person pretended to not see me in the frozen food section, and they disappeared into the pet section. They didn't even own a pet. It was awkward, but who makes it awkward? One of the best things someone said to me was, "It's so shit what's happened, I can't believe it. Can I give you a hug?" Society likes people to grieve privately behind closed doors, and believe me, I needed my private time, but I also needed to talk. It seems that other countries and cultures do it so much better than us. We have this stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, and it's just not helpful. Communication is the key. Having a grief buddy, someone you can talk to, someone who can listen without judgment. You don't need to be a qualified grief counsellor in order to be there for someone, and grievers don't need fixing. They need support. When Matthew died, I wanted to talk and talk and talk. I was trying to make sense of something that made no sense, and my way of processing my grief was to talk about it over and over again. I had a friend that would just sit with me and listen. She didn't need to say or do anything, she just needed to be there. I probably bored the pants off her, but I'm happy to say she's still my friend. I also liked to journal, so I wrote most days about how I was feeling, and this helped to get it out of my head. If you're not sure what to do to help someone, you could write them a letter, or send them a WhatsApp, or an email saying, "No need to reply, but I'm thinking of you." You could bake a cake, or take them round a casserole. Shopping is so difficult in the early stages of grief. I'm lucky I have a great family and friends who would just pop by with bags of groceries. And someone even left me what I thought was a tin of sweets on my doorstep, with a note saying they were still thinking about me, which was lovely. And when I opened it months later, I found a mouldy cake inside. I was gutted. I love cake. It's so hard to get it right. No wonder people avoid engaging in this subject, because no matter what people say or what people do, the grievers will continue to feel sad, and that's normal. But people don't like to see their friends and family like that. I still miss Matthew every day, dreadfully, and I can be triggered when I see someone who looks like him, or I hear a particular song on the radio, or it could be a particular smell. But this reminds me that there's still work to do, and that's okay. I'm still a work in progress. I find comfort in signs. Seeing white feathers in unusual places, or being visited by a robin on special occasions, or seeing butterflies because they represent transformation. These are all reminders that Matthew is still with me, and we can all find comfort in whatever belief system we have. I now have a passion for helping others going through grief. I don't know how it will pan out, but what started with my personal journal after Matthew died turned into a book called Letters to Matthew, Life After Loss. Writing played a big part in my healing, and Victoria Derbyshire gave it a great review. So I just want to read one little bit out. Dear Matthew, there is a tiny robin that comes onto the patio every day and looks through the window. We have staring competitions, and I usually win because he or she is very jittery and flies off at the slightest thing, but it isn't long before he comes back. I had the urge to look up the spiritual meaning of a robin today because I felt it was trying to tell me something, and I couldn't believe what I read. When a robin redbreast constantly visits you or crosses your path, a loved one in heaven is saying, "Hello, I'm with you." Well, that made my day. Thank you, Mr. Robin. I hope the neighbours catch us and catch you. My second book is called A Gift for Grief, and it contains poems, meditations, exercises, and case studies from my work as a therapist. It can be hard to know what to do or say when someone is grieving, and this book hopefully makes a wonderful gift. I haven't had a famous person endorse it yet. I'm working on it. I'll just read a small bit out from, it's called Getting Unstuck. There is no end to grief, just a beginning, a middle, and the rest of your life. It may feel more comfortable for you to sit with your deep sadness and do nothing to move out of the grief vortex, and that is okay. It takes effort to be any other way, and grief cannot be rushed, but it can be loosened. You are not disrespecting your loved one or the grieving process by moving forward. Moving forward can just be taking one small step at a time. Moving forward can be just forcing yourself to open your eyes first thing in the morning. Moving forward can be taking deep breaths in and out. Moving forward can be just taking a shower. Moving forward doesn't have to be massive occurrences. You just need to be pointing in the right direction. And feeling sad every time you think about your loss is not being stuck. Even years later, you can be brought to your knees by a sentimental song on the radio, or a special anniversary, or just some random for no other reason than you just miss that person. Grief can hijack you at any time now or in the future. This is not being stuck. So after I wrote my 2 books, I felt writing really helped me, so I started a blog which is on my website, and it sort of continues with my journey. And then in August last year, I launched my podcast, which is called A Gift for Grief. This podcast offers a safe space for listeners to connect with others going through similar emotions. It provides practical advice on coping with grief, or simply offers a sense of companionship during a difficult time. I have 20 episodes so far, and I will be recording more later this year. We're getting so much better at talking about mental health, but when it comes to grief and loss, we've got a long way to go. It's crucial for society to recognise that grief should not be hidden or ignored, and I hope my books and podcasts help to break down the stigma in some way. It's time to stop the awkwardness and clumsiness surrounding this topic, and let's share our grief stories and support each other. I talk about Matthew every day because he's still part of my life, and this talk is my gift for grief, and I hope it helps you in your journey wherever you are. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Louise, for such a personal journey and sharing it with us all. Has anybody got any questions for Louise? Are your books on sale today, or how do we get them?
I've bought a few, but you can get them from my website. Yeah. And if you want to take a picture of that, it takes you to my website.
Perfect. A bit like me with the technology.
Thank you very much.
No question. Oh.
There's a question I've got. It's a tricky one, which is, when we're grieving, sometimes I would suggest we can behave quite badly, and we usually are owed a pass for that. Do you have any sort of thoughts or reflections on at what point does one have to just put a marker down and say, you know, this is, you know what I'm saying? How do you address that? At what point is it appropriate, or is it never appropriate?
So I think any behaviour is communication, whether it's good behaviour or bad behaviour. It's communication, and that person is probably dealing with it in the way that they know how to deal with it.
Yes.
And to just be with that person and ask them what they need. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. If I may, the second question I've got for you is it ever inappropriate, so in the supermarket case,
Yes, yeah.
would it be perfectly appropriate if I knew you and I knew you had your loss, come up to you in the supermarket, just completely unaware and say, hi Louise, I'm really sorry for that.
Do you know, that's a really interesting thing, because I've thought about that a lot, because the supermarket's you just go and do your shopping. You don't go in for meaningful conversations or, you know, awkwardness. You just want to go in and get your food and get out. And I've been in there and I've seen people that have seen me and have acknowledged me, but I felt that awkwardness because I felt awkward too. Because we were in the supermarket, and do you hug in the supermarket? What do you do? I think just go with whatever feels right for you, but anything except walking past, hiding, ignoring. You know, it might sound clumsy what you say, but I would say just say something, even if it makes you feel awkward. Because for the griever, it's worse if it's totally ignored. But, you know, what somebody said to me was, oh, it's so shit, what happened? And it was just like so natural. It wasn't a cliche phrase. It was just like, oh, that's the best thing anybody's ever said to me. So just be you and try try not to think of something that's been repeated over and over. I'm sorry for your loss, which is better than nothing. But yeah,
I worked in film trade for like 10 years. And so it's really common when we work with in Coventry to go out and you see people that you never grieve wherever you go. And you see people, they look at you. I remember going to the cinema one night and the bereaved family being next to me, and I'm like, oh God, they can see me, because I didn't want them to see me enjoy myself.
yeah.
But I find if you just go up and go, like, wink at them,
Yes.
and they say, I'll text you, and then do it.
Yes.
And I think that's the key thing is, didn't
Makes
want to stop and
yeah.
talk to you, just thinking of you, and then they follow up. So like, don't ignore them, do you say something? Or, you know, follow up.
Yeah.
Don't ignore them, and just wink, tap on, whatever the relationship is.
Just let them know you're there.
And I think whenever I'm reading, you just turn up the biscuits. And when I bake, you turn up the biscuits.
It is. We all deal with grief differently,
Yeah.
all of us. And even though I work in the industry, I give people completely different, I'm not going to say advice, that'd be wrong, but I'd say to you, complete opposite of what I did. Complete opposite. You know, my dad died and 4 hours later I was in work because I had families I was looking after. It wasn't their fault my dad had died. And again, it was a huge relief thing. You know, he wasn't living the life that he wanted to live as a man. You know, it was a relief. And it wasn't until I left the film industry for a couple of years and I was able then to grieve my mum and dad. Because when you're working, my job was to look after other grieving families, my grief wasn't important.
When you say to me, you can grieve for a day, but that's it. You can wallow for a day, and other than that, carry on.
Yeah, so what people do actually, what's called controlled grief. They say, I'm going to grieve tonight at 7 o'clock for an hour. And they go about their day and do their thing, and 7 o'clock they go, right, I'm crying now. And that's fine if it works for that person. You know, you've got to do whatever's right for you.
Quite often it doesn't work, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Until a year later and you're like, gosh, I didn't know that very well. And then, you know, your body and mind will tell you, hopefully, your mind will tell your body when it's time to rest.
Absolutely.
And your body will respond.
Yes, yeah.
But it is hard. If you can talk about it, and, you know, anyone that will listen, doesn't have to be someone you know. You know, somebody on the bus.
Yeah.
People are interested. They want to know what's going on in their lives.
What surprises me is when I talk about it, it opens, everyone wants to talk about it. It's like, we just don't talk about it. We just need somebody to start talking about it. And people say, oh, when I lost my mum, this happened, or when I lost... And, it, you know, it gives people permission then to talk about their grief.
You can take a little bit from that.
Yeah.
I do also think that, though, that people shouldn't force their grief onto other people.
No.
Because, as you've said within your talk, everybody grieves differently. And I know, well, my mum died last year, it got to Christmas Day, and I'd got in my head how I was going to spend Christmas Day with the family and how I was going to honour my mum within that, who would normally have been at my house on Christmas Day. And yet I got some messages, and one in particular, that was all about what an awful day I was going to have. Saying, oh, you know, I'm so sorry that, you know, I'm with you today, I know that it's going to be awful for you, but I'm just letting you know I'm thinking of you. And I thought, I'd planned this day where I was honouring her with certain things throughout the day, what the family was going to be doing. And I was actually looking forward to that because Christmas is a bit like what you were saying, my mum had been suffering, and in a way I felt that she was out of that suffering. But they literally put their perception of grief onto me completely, and it did affect my day. And I waited till the evening till I responded, and I was very careful how I responded to a level, but it was pretty much, don't do that to me again. That was so wrong.
You can miss her every day.
Because then it made me feel like I was
But then again,
my way.
their intentions were probably good, but it was just clumsy. And that's why I'm on a mission to help society become more grief literate, hopefully.
The key to the story you just said there was that you responded to illness, and that's a learning, and it's about a conversation, which you said it's about communication. Conversation.
And you can't
say that was okay, and that's, and that would they'll have that experience.
Although some people would probably quite enjoy following
They use your grief, don't
I
they?
find it because my sounds like it about me, but my illness, I've got fibromyalgia, and basically I've had to sort of grieve the loss of my future self.
Yes.
And the number of people are like, oh, it must be awful for you, oh, you can't do that. Or other people are going, oh, I can't work anymore, I've got this, I can't do this anymore, I can't do that. And so much is wallowing and suffering from these things. So, and like letting grief become something you suffer from instead of something that you experience and live with. And
People just get stuck.
and without sounding cowardly, one person dies, but you still have another family, and yes, they're not a replacement, but they still need you and they're all grieving, and you can celebrate and do things together in your own, like you say, ways that means something to you, without mourning rather than grieving. I don't know if there's a difference, but mourning always feels very Victorian and very early stages.
And you can talk. Talking's good.
Yeah.
Like I say, people sometimes ignore you. Track them down. Make them talk to you. Go down that path.
Chase them with a trolley.
Talk to me.
Come back here.
I've just seen you in the frozen food.
Yeah.
How are you doing? You sometimes have to speak to them first.
Yeah.
There's an old thing we used to say, and I don't quite agree with it, but if you can't think of what to say with them. And don't say anything, just say hello.
I usually feel that I have to rescue the person. I think, oh, hi, no, it's fine.
It's the family, it's the funeral of the loved one, it's the family looking after all the people that are there.
There's people out there to talk to, isn't there?
Last question.
Just well, it wasn't a question, it was just a reflection on the you rescuing people. I've got that story too in my experience, but I won't go into it now, but yeah. They were out okay, but actually they were actually...
You'll have to tell me now later.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Come on then, very
Another
quickly.
question. Louise, what's your take on the words that we use? What I notice is when someone's bereaved, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. And to say that X died, or that they passed away, or I'm so sorry to hear about X. Did you have any
What, passing away, I use death, dying, dead.
just straight?
Just do
straight
it,
up?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the early days I was walking around on eggshells.
Where the local priest
It's all-
said passed away.
Yeah, it does soften it. It does soften it, but I've just got to the stage now of just death, dying, dead.
I find it irritating now if people use passing away.
Yeah,
If they say, oh, you've lost them, I'm like, and I literally will come back with, no, I knew exactly where they were.
And with children, with children, you can't say that because they take it literally and they think, oh, I can go out and find them if they're just lost. You have to be very specific with your language. Yeah.
Useful.
Thank you so much for your questions and thank you for listening.